Check it.
Okay, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about synthetic division. Now the word synthetic means fake, so this is fake division. Well, it's actually a shortcut for long division. Now one thing we probably noticed when you learned long division in the last lesson is that long division is long. It takes a long time. And well, this is a shortcut that only works on certain examples, and I'll tell you which examples that it works on. So when you have the ability to use synthetic division, go for it. It's actually a lot faster and a lot easier. Now, here's the thing. You have this division problem here. It's this polynomial divided by this polynomial. You want to divide. Well, in reality, this is supposed to be written as a fraction. So let me write it as a fraction. Okay, and there it is. And usually what you would have to do is, well, here's the thing. If this was one term down here, like for instance, let me just, instead of x minus 4, let's say this was, I don't know, 3x squared or something like that. If it was a single term like this one is, you would split the fraction like we learned in the last lesson. Okay, split that, split that, split that, split that, create 4 fractions, 1, 2, 3, 4. That would give you an answer that you can reduce, and then you'd be done. But if you have more than one term in the denominator, like we do here, we have an x minus 4 in the denominator. That's 2 separate terms. There's an x and there's a 4, and there's a minus in between. So if you have something plus something or something minus something, you can't split the fraction, so you have to do long division, and long division looks like this. Okay, and once you've written out your long division, and you have to make sure that you're not missing any powers here. So you have the third power, the second power, the first power, and the 0th power. All the powers are there. If you don't have a power, you're supposed to put a 0 in its place. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. And then you start the whole process. Like, okay, what do you multiply by x to get 2x to the third, 2x squared, and you multiply that times that, and you end up getting this really long thing until you get to the bottom. Well, hopefully this will help for some problems. If your divisor, the thing you're dividing by, if it's in the form of x minus c, x being the variable and c being a number. So in this case, it's literally x minus 4. So your c must be 4. Now, how do you find the value of c? You take that divisor. So in this case, the thing you're dividing by is x minus 4, and you set it equal to 0. So you come over here, x minus 4 equal to 0, and you obviously have to add 4 to both sides, right? And you get x equals 4. That 4 right there, that's going to be the thing you're going to use for your synthetic division. Okay? And here's what we do with it. Now, synthetic division is a little weird looking. It's not exactly the same as regular division or long division, so follow me on this. You're going to look at your denominator. As long as there's no letter in front of, there's no number in front of this letter. Like for instance, if this was 3x minus 4, you have to use long division. If this was x squared minus 4, you have to use long division. If this was x squared minus 4x, you have to use long division. So the only one you can use synthetic division for is when there's no power on this x and no number sitting in front of the x, okay? Minus or plus, it doesn't have to be a minus a number, okay? And then you can set that equal to 0 and find out what your number is going to be. So this is your divisor for synthetic division. It's just a 4. Here's what you do. Here we go. So you take your 4, you write it over here, and then you know how long division has that symbol, that thing? We're going to flip that upside down. Okay? So upside down like that. But we also have to make it twice as tall or double wide like that. So we're not going to have this here. We're just going to have a single upside down double wide division symbol, as it were. Okay? Why do we need a double wide? Because we're going to have numbers. We're going to have 2 rows of numbers. We're going to have a row of numbers here and another row underneath. Okay, so leave enough room for a row of numbers, another row of numbers, and then your answer is going to be down here. So you need enough room for all that. So when you draw your thing, okay, you set up your synthetic division, make sure you leave enough room. Okay, so I just call it a double wide trailer right here. Okay, and now you have your divisor out here. What's your dividend? Well, here it is right here. Once again, you have to make sure that there are no powers missing. And once you're sure that there are no powers missing, just copy the coefficients. The coefficients are the numbers in front of the letters. So the coefficient here is 2, the coefficient of x cubed, third power coefficient. The second power coefficient is negative 13. x to the first power, its coefficient is 26. Leave a little space between each one. And the 0th power, meaning no x at all, okay, this is the equivalent of saying x to the 0 power, right, is negative 24, no x at all. And now you're all set up for synthetic division. Now, what's the process? You start by dropping the first number down. So take whatever this number is, drop it down and put it here. After this first step, it's just a repeating pattern of multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply, add until you're done. Here's how it goes. You take the divisor, you multiply by whatever number's down here. 4 times 2 is 8, and you put the result right here. Then you add these two numbers. Negative 13 plus 8, or 8 minus 13, is negative 5. And then you start over. You take this number over here, you multiply it by this. You get negative 20. You put the negative 20 right here. Now you add these two numbers. 26 minus 20 is 6. Now you take this number and multiply this. You get 24. You put it right here. 24. And then you add these two numbers and you get a 0. The last number is your remainder. Okay? If your remainder is a 0, that proves that this x minus 4 is a factor of the polynomial that you just divided. Okay, divided by. Well, you divided by this, that you divided. All right? So this goes into this evenly, and that's why there's no remainder. That means the definition of going into something evenly is what it is to be a factor. So this is a factor of this. Okay? And now, what do you do with these numbers down here that you got as your answer? Well, here's the thing. Your original polynomial was a third power polynomial. It had a power of 3. So there's a third power term. This is a second power term. This is a first power term. And this is the 0th power term, right? No x at all. When you divide by this is a first power right here. Okay, and synthetic division only works with the first power of x. When you do synthetic division, you're dividing all of these by a first power. You're going to knock all of these down by 1 power. So that means your answer is going to start with a second power. This was a third. This is going to be your second power, first power, and 0th power of x. So that means this is going to be the coefficient for the second power. See, this started off as the third power, like I said right here, right? But now it's going to be the second power after you divide it. So we're going to have 2 x to the second minus 5 x to the first, which we don't bother writing the first power, plus 6 x to the nothing, meaning no x at all. And now if there was a remainder, you'd do the whole fraction thing for the remainder, but there isn't, so you're done. Now, once again, we know that this is a factor of the big polynomial, and also this is a factor of the big polynomial. Okay? Now this, we're not going to factor this because it's not factorable. However, if you can factor this, you need to, if you're being asked to fully factor, you would need to try to factor this now with AC method. But in this case, we weren't asked to fully factor, and this is not even factorable. If you try it, you're not going to be able to factor it. So we're done. That's the answer right there. And that's synthetic division. Now, if we had done this with long division, believe me, it would have taken up a lot more space and a lot more work. Once you get the hang of this, it's actually pretty quick and pretty easy. So let's go on to another example here, maybe one with a remainder. Let's try this one right here. Okay, so we have, this one's already written as a fraction, which is nice. And once again, the divisor down here, the thing you're dividing by, has to be a first power only. It cannot be a second power, it cannot be a third power, cannot be anything like that, no other powers. And you can't have any coefficient in front of the letter. Now, for the honors class, we do have a trick for getting rid of that coefficient, but we'll get to that at the very end of the video. Right now, just understand that if you have a power on your p, okay, you cannot use synthetic division, you have to use long division. Or, for the intents and purposes of this problem, if you have a number like 4 or 3 or 7 or negative 2/3 or anything, then you can't use synthetic division. But we're good. There's just a p plus 3. So take your p plus 3, put it over here, set it equal to 0, subtract 3 from both sides, right? And you get negative 3 as the number you're going to use for synthetic division. So come over here and put down your negative 3. Draw your double wide trailer. Okay? Now, do you have all your powers up here? Third power, second power, first power, 0th power. Yeah, we're good. So just copy the coefficients right here and you're good to go. What's the coefficient of the third power? It's a 1. There's nothing there, so it's a 1. What's the coefficient of the second power? It's a 2. Coefficient of the first power, it's a -7. Don't forget the negative. And the 0th power, -21. And there's the setup for synthetic division. Notice I have enough room here to put another row of numbers because I need that. So that's the setup. Now the game. You drop the first number down to the bottom. And then from here on in, it's just multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply, add. Here we go. Multiply -3 times 1 and put the result -3 here. 2 minus 3, when you add them, is -1. -3 times -1 is +3. -7 plus 3, or 3 minus 7, is -4. -3 times -4 is +12. -21 plus 12, or 12 minus 21, is -9. And that last number is always your remainder. So what do we know now? Just by doing this quick synthetic division, we know that p plus 3 is not a factor of this thing up here because it does not go in evenly. How do we know it does not go in evenly? There's a remainder, which is the definition of not going in evenly, right? So anyway, well, I can leave that there. So what's our answer? Well, if you remember, we started off with a third power, and when you do synthetic division, your answer will begin 1 power lower than that. So this is a second power right here, okay? And then this is the first power, and this is a 0th power. So 1 p to the second, we're just going to write p squared. We're not going to write the 1. Minus 1 p to the first, okay? Minus 1 p to the first. We're not going to write the 1 here either. Minus 4. And then your remainder is -9. Now, if you remember how to, what to do with the remainder, you create a fraction for your remainder. So plus a fraction, and the fraction is the remainder on top, which in this case is -9, and on the bottom is your original divisor, not the divisor that you used over here, the -3, but the p plus 3, the whole thing here, p plus 3. Now there's one more step here because your remainder is negative. If your remainder is negative, this is plus negative, and you can never leave a double sign in Algebra 2. You get penalized for it. So plus minus just means minus, or plus negative means minus. So you need to combine those two signs here, and now here's your final answer. P squared minus p plus 4 minus, bring this minus down, or multiply this times this and you get a negative, and then you get 9 over p plus 3. That's your final answer. Box your final answer if you want credit on your quizzes and homeworks. Okay, box your final answer. All right, that is your second example of synthetic division. Now, if you look at this, believe me, if you had done the long division with the p plus 3 equal that, and this would have gone on forever, and eventually you would have gotten your 9 down here, and you would have gotten the same answer. You would have gotten p squared minus p plus 4 minus 9 over p plus 3, but this is so much faster and so much quicker. And sometimes you just want to know if something goes into something evenly for the sake of factoring, right? So right away, we wouldn't bother trying to factor because we know that this is not a factor. This does not go in evenly. However, here, x minus 4 is a factor because we had a 0 remainder, and that helps us factor. So that's why we have this little shortcut to help us factor. Okay, that's what synthetic division is really good for, speeding up the dividing process so we can know if we have factors. All right, let's go on to this next example here. One more for the rest of the situation here. All right, so we have 5 as our highest power, 4, but we don't have a 3. Notice that there's no third power, there's no second power even. There is a first power, and there is a nothing power. This is z to the nothing, right? So there's no z at all here. So we're missing some powers. So right away, we need to rewrite this immediately, because you can't do synthetic division or long division if you're missing powers. So 3z to the 5th, that's good. 5z to the 4th, that's fine. But then where's the z to the 3rd? There isn't any z to the 3rd, so you're going to write plus 0 z to the 3rd as a placeholder. Is there a second power? No, so put in another 0 there, plus 0 squared. Is there a first power? Yes, it's right there, z to the 1st, and a 5 z to the nothing right there. Now this is z plus 2 on the bottom. This is in the form of x minus c. In other words, it's a letter without anything in front of it, without any powers, and then a number in front of it. So take that z plus 2 off on the side here in your scrap area, set it equal to 0, and subtract 2 from both sides, and you'll get z equals -2, and that will be your divisor for the synthetic division. So come over here, put that -2 over here, draw your double wide, okay? And then copy all of your, coefficients from here, not from here. So don't get caught in the trap of going, oh, 3, 5, 1, 5. No, okay? It's 3, 5, 0, 0, 1, 5. 3, 5, 0, 0. There's a 1 here that we don't write and a 5. So now you have the correct setup for synthetic division. And by the way, long division requires you to do that as well. So if you didn't pick that up during the long division lesson, now you see it again. Okay, so what do? The first step is to drop the 3 here, right? Drop your first number and start. Multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply, add until the end. So here we go. -2 times 3, -6. 5 plus -6 is -1. -2 times -1 is +2. 0 plus 2 is still 2. -2 times 2 is -4. 0 plus -4 is still -4. -2 times -4 is +8. 1 plus 8 is 9. -2 times 9 is -18. And 5 minus 18, or -18 plus 5, is -13. That's your remainder. So right away we know z plus 2 is not a factor, okay, of the top here. So what's our answer? What's our, quotient? Well, what was our power to start with? We started off with a 5th power, right? This was originally a 5th power of z. This is going to be a 4th power because it comes down 1 power. So here we go. 3z to the 4th power minus 1z to the 3rd power. We're not going to be missing any powers here. Plus 2z to the 2nd power minus 4z to the 1st power. We don't write the 1st power. Plus 9z to the nothing. Plus, and now we have a remainder. The remainder is -13 over the original divisor, which is z plus 2. And once again, we have that whole plus minus thing happening there, so we need to fix that. So 3z to the 4th. We put the minus here, the 13 by itself up there, plus 2, and box your final answer. Okay, if that looks crazy to you, we can check the answer up here. And yep, that's exactly it. All right. Last one. Now this last one here is for the honors class. So if you're in the academic, you're done for the honor, or you can stick around and check this out. For the last question, I don't have the right setup for synthetic division. I have a 4 here, which I'm not supposed to have. So here's a way to get around that. And in the honors class, you'll notice in the homework here, you have 2 extra questions, 26 and 27, that are going to be just like that. So here we go. How do you do this? Well, first off, let's write this as a fraction so we can look at it that way. So you look at this and say, all right, well, a couple of things are going on here. First of all, we're missing powers up here. Second of all, there's a 4 in front of our y minus 1. We can't have that number there if we're going to use synthetic division. So the easiest thing to do here is to realize you can divide fractions as long as you divide the top and the bottom by the same number. Like for instance, let's say you have 20 over 16. You can divide the top and bottom by the same number, divide by 4, and you will get 5 over 4, right? That's called reducing. That's what reducing is, dividing the top and bottom by the same factor, the greatest common factor. So we can do that here. As long as we do the top and bottom by the same number, we can do this. So here's the thing though, you have to be careful because you're going to get some fractions. If I want to make this a y without a 4 in front of it, I need to divide this by 4. If I divide that by 4, I need to divide the entire bottom by 4 and the entire top by 4. So everything divided by 4. Everybody gets divided by 4. Everybody. So what do we get? The bottom becomes y minus 1/4. Now, I never said that, this is supposed to be x minus c, right? I never said that the c had to be a whole number. I just said that the x had to be by itself. Now here, this is a y that we're using for our x, so to speak, and minus a number. The number just happens to be a fraction, and that's fine. So when you come over here and you go y minus 1/4 equals 0, and you add 1/4 to both sides, this is going to be your divisor, and here's your setup for synthetic division. It's going to be 1/4, and there's your double wide. Okay, so yeah, you'll have a fraction here. So it's a little more complicated than, you know, the regular synthetic division, but it's still synthetic division. Now, you're going to have to just multiply some fractions, and hopefully that's not too big of a deal for you. Now here we have 8 over 4, which is 2. So it's going to be 2y to the 5th. This is going to be 2 over 4, which is 1/2, so minus 1/2 y to the 4th. We're missing a third power, so plus 0 y to the 3rd. We're also missing, we're not missing a second power. 16 over 4 is going to be 4, so minus 4 y squared. We're missing a first power here, so plus 0y, and then 4 over 4 is 1 plus 1. So that's our fraction right there. Okay, and this is our divisor. Now that's legal. Oops. That's legal because you are allowed to multiply or divide the top and bottom of a fraction. As long as you do it to every single term in the top and the bottom, it keeps the fraction balanced. Okay, just like you balance an equation by doing the same thing to both sides of an equation. Now, here we go. So what are our new coefficients here? 2, that's your fifth power. Negative 1/2. 0. Negative 4. Another 0. Positive 1. And play the game the way you normally play it. So drop the first number. 1/4 times 2 is 2/4. 2/4 reduced to lowest terms is 1/2. Right? Because remember, this is just 2 over 1. So 1/4 times 2 over 1 is 2 over 4, which 2 over 4 is 1/2. And then add these together. Well, these are going to become 0 when you add them together, right? And then 1/4 times 0 is still 0. 0 plus 0 is still 0. 1/4 times 0 is 0. Negative 4 plus 0 is negative 4. 1/4 of negative 4 is negative 1. 0 plus negative 1 is negative 1. 1/4 times negative 1 is negative 1/4. And finally, you have to add these two together. Oh, you need a common denominator for this one. 1 minus 1/4. Well, you can look at it as 3/4, or 4/4 minus 1/4 is 3/4. Either way, it's 3/4. Now, that's your remainder. Don't forget, that's your remainder. Now, what's your answer? We started with a fifth power. That means our answer starts with a fourth power. So this is, I'm not sure why I wrote that in red. So this is going to be 2, what's the letter here? Y to the 4th plus 0 y to the 3rd plus 0 y squared minus 4 y to the 1st minus 1 y to the nothing. And then you have your 3/4 here. That's your remainder. So for your remainder, don't forget you have plus a fraction. The divisor, the denominator will be the divisor that you got after you divided. So not the 4y minus 1 that we started with in the original problem. Not this, because we reduced a fraction. We divided everything by 4. So it's going to be this thing here, y minus 1/4, this thing. And on top, it's going to be this thing right here, 3/4. Now, there's a lot we can clean up here. First of all, these are going to disappear because we're not going to have to write those. So now we have 2y to the 4th minus 4y minus 1, okay? And now we have this thing here. Now this is, it's got fractions within a fraction. That's a mess. Remember in the beginning when I told you we were going to divide everything by 4? Well, here's the little trick to this thing. If you can remember that you divided everything by 4, we can now fix this fraction here by multiplying everything by 4, the same number. Multiply by 4, multiply by 4. You're essentially just multiplying by 4 over 4, which is 1, right? If you multiply 3/4 times 4, the 4's cancel out, and this just becomes a 3, right? Because that is going to cancel out. And if you multiply both of these by 4, this becomes 4y, and this becomes minus 1. Now, if you remember, we started with 4y minus 1 because we took the 4y minus 1, we divided by 4, and now we're multiplying by 4. So we're undoing what we did before, and we're getting back the original divisor. Let me just write that again, 4y minus 1. And that's it, we're done. Here you go. Your simplified full credit answer is right there. So can you do synthetic division if there's a number in front of the letter here? Yeah, but you have to divide it out before you start. And don't forget to divide it from every single term, from the top and the bottom. Yes, you will have to deal with some fractions here, but not too difficult, hopefully. And don't give me any decimals, by the way. And finally, at the end, if you get a fraction like this, where you got fractions within fractions, just multiply by the same number that you originally divided by, and that'll bring it back to where it should be. Okay, we're done with synthetic division. See you at the next video.
Check this.